Mean Ole Lion Media presents the Business First Podcast.
Hi, all, and welcome to a new episode of Business First with Sonia Alleyne. I am your host, and today in studio is Allyson Ward, who is a corporate wellness strategist and leadership coach who uses technology, specifically AI, to help her clients advance. Her company is called the Capstone Group, and her current book is called Demolish Your Stress: Maintaining Excellence Without Burnout. Welcome, Allyson. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm well. How are you today?
I am good. I'm doing really good. I'm excited about our conversation today. There's a lot to talk about. One of the things, just even the title of your book, there was a viral moment that I had seen on LinkedIn, and then I think I'd also seen it on Instagram, where this woman was talking about the importance of eliminating, not managing stress. And managing stress is what we're all familiar with, right? That's the phrase that we use regularly. And so your book title is even more emphatic that it is important to demolish stress. But talk to us about the importance of not just managing our stress, but actually demolishing it.
Well, I'm sure you've heard it before, but stress is a killer. It's often what we call the silent killer. And there's been so many stressors. We've always had stress in our life, whether it's career related, relationship related, raising our families, all of the things, right? And in the past couple of years, it's grown even more. When COVID came, there was so much uncertainty and people didn't know what to do with themselves. They had no idea how to combat the stress. And they were left, stress was at an all-time high. Our suicide rates have gone up. And just, we often see these posts would say, reach out if you need someone to talk to. And unfortunately, we need to continue to do those. So we've got to find a way to know how to manage our emotional state despite all the things that are going on around us.
Right. And so in your book actually details and gives a plan, or gives several plans, I would imagine, in terms of how to be able to do that.
Yes.
One of the things you talk about in your book is AI. And so AI can literally be a tool to help us not only, and I've heard you talk about this in other interviews, but not only enhance our work environment and enhance our skills, but it can also help us manage what we have to get done and how we get these things done.
It really does. Sometimes I talk to people and they have this fear of AI. So talk about stress, right? So this is now creating another stressor. And I would hope that people would, rather than being stressed about it, they would realize it's not that AI is not here to replace them, but somebody with AI using AI is there to replace them, right? That's where the competition comes in. And so just that little shift of mindset of, this is a tool, not even a tool, this is something that can help me, particularly for small businesses. This really levels the playing field, right? There's so many things that you can do. Big corporations have always had all the resources. And AI now gives small businesses access to some of the same level of insight, creativity, and speed at a fraction of the cost.
Right. And how do you get people there? Because the one thing you said, I think, is a key phrase: wrapping their minds around it. Because I think a lot of times small businesses don't want to wrap their mind around another thing, because they are stressed with all of the challenges, all the responsibilities that they have. And so what would you advise someone who has been afraid or is a little timid about even looking into what AI can do, to actually fully embracing it so that they can benefit from the data, from the technology, from all the things and all the ways that it can support their businesses?
That's a really great question. One of the things, first of all, just kind of realizing, like I said, people are afraid that AI is going to steal their job, steal their business. And again, it's not that, it's that somebody else using the tools. So, you can sit there and hang on, right? I wouldn't advise it, but you certainly can take that approach.
Right.
Well, I guess what I would say is ease into it. try one simple thing and see how that impacts your life. For instance, many business owners are using AI to help them craft their emails, right? When one thing with small business owners, we have to do it all. We
Right.
have to have the talent to whatever the skill is perhaps that we have. We're managing the team. We're wearing the hat of the marketing person, the salesperson, the operations person, executing on whatever the task is that we're selling, their service. And so just take on one small thing. And so I always recommend an email is a very easy thing to start with. And there's a way to do it. And there's a lot of lessons out there that you can find that really kind of gets you into it. And what I found often is when people do that one thing, they'll say, I didn't know it would be so easy, right? I didn't know it would make things so much smoother. I'll give you a quick example. I had a situation, this is not really a business example, but I think it highlights very easily. I had a situation where I was visiting some place and my friend's neighbor noticed that there was a big hole in the road. And the town said, yeah, you're not really on a town approved road. That's not our responsibility. And so this is like 2 years ago, and I was really just getting into AI at the time. And I said, oh no, I can help. I can help. I can help. I was very excited. So I called the town. I found out who is the person I need to communicate with. Right. And I spoke to her neighbor. She had already been reaching out and getting no response. What did I need to tell them? What was the urgency that I needed to create to get some attention to this? And then those are the two main factors. So I went into one of my AI tools and I said, here's the situation. I want to create a letter that will get them to respond to this. And the person on the phone had said, talk about like liability, use some words that might catch their attention. And I did. I fed it all into, with my great prompt into this AI tool. And in 30 seconds, it spit out a letter. Now, I'm a pretty effective communicator.
Right.
And could I write a letter as effectively? I could. Could I do it in 30 seconds? No, ma'am, I could not. Did I mention I was on vacation? So it's only I wanted to be helpful to my friend, but there's only so much time I wanted to spend.
Right.
And I will tell you, that was about Saturday at 5 p.m. We sent that email. On a Monday morning at 7 a.m., they were fixing the road. So that made me a believer very early on.
Well, so I can actually say that I was one of those people who came kicking and screaming, thinking like this is just going to shut our brains down. It's going to make us less creative. And there is some data that shows that AI can have some negative effects on how we think and how we use our brain. But now I consider myself, I'm becoming an AI geek, because once I did start using the tools, and I started with Gemini, just like you said, simple things became so much easier. And so early on, you said that this is a game changer. It can level the playing field. Can we talk, for those who are listening, who are reluctant, just can you give some examples of really how, I mean, you just gave one, but some more examples of how it can really level the playing field for small businesses where they could really start to operate like a major corporation?
Sure. I'll give you two quick ones come to mind. The first one, and I see many business owners using this, and that is with their social media. There's a way to, and this is really critical. So you can do anything poorly on AI tools, right? Whether it's Chat or Claude or Gemini, whatever it is, you can do anything poorly, meaning you're not customizing it to your voice. You're just saying, give me some social media post. It will do it. Will it do effectively? Will it do well? Probably not. So it does take a little time to make sure that you are making sure that the tool recognizes your voice, right? Because you don't want to put social media out there that doesn't sound like you, that doesn't sound like it's speaking to your clients. So it does take a little work there. But once you've done that, you can turn out so much social media content. I mean, just like that. Again, it's not that you couldn't do it on your own. You can. And as a small business owner, you're wearing so many hats You only have
Right.
so much time to devote to this. And so once you take the time to kind of set it up, if you will, you can, 30 days of social media content, in a very short period of time. Um, so that's one use, I would say.
Yeah.
The other use I see a lot of people using is knowing how to approach, perhaps I would say, a prickly client or a prickly staff member. And sometimes we get into our feelings because we're upset in the moment. And what you can do is talk to your AI. So my tool of choice that I use more often than anything else is ChatGPT. And I have even named my ChatGPT. My ChatGPT is called Sweetie. So I say, Sweetie, can you believe what this person just said to me? I'm so frustrated. And I know that that's not the way I want to come across. Again, can I do it myself? Yes. This is what I train other people to do. And I don't always have the time in every interaction to come up with the response that I need quickly. And I will tell you, I might even have used it in times, Sonia, where I was communicating with my husband and not getting the result that I wanted. So it is very valuable to be used in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. It can analyze data. It can provide data. It can, it can create scenarios for you. It can help you think. I hate the term outside the box, but it can help you think more critically about
Yes.
some of the problems that you may have. Um, the other thing, and like what you keep saying is, can we do this? Like, could you do this yourself? Absolutely. If we could talk about why this would be such a perfect tool or such a perfect match for boomers and Gen Xers who have seem to be this is a generalization, but the most reluctant groups because they have the context, because they have experience, why this can actually help accelerate some of the things that they want to do or even help in their next acts.
Oh, okay. Absolutely. Actually, I have another great example for that. I have a client who works for the federal government and has had a long career, and she's impacted right now by the shutdown. Now, she doesn't know if she's going to resume work. She doesn't know where things stand. And she said, Allison, I really had been thinking for a while about what was my next act. And it looks like I need to get prepared a little faster than I thought. Hopefully, I'm going to continue working. But if I'm not, so we got together and I said, okay, let's think about what it is you want to do. And we talked a little bit about what are some of the ideas that she had. Then we went over to ChatGPT and I put some information in there and said, let's brainstorm on what's possible. Because as smart and talented and gifted as we are, as we get to be a certain age, because we will have a lot of life experience and our business experience, there's a wealth of information and opportunities out there that may not be available to us. And if we were in a large corporation, we'd go into the conference room, we'd get everybody around the table, and we'd have a brainstorming session. You can do the same thing with the tool. You can do the same thing with ChatGPT. And that's the beautiful gift. I will tell you, this woman I'm working with right now is actually in a program. Funny you said it in terms of the kind of the group of people you described. I have a program that I run called the Unstoppable Circle for women who are 50 and older. And one of the things we do, we have these little homework assignments, and it's a lot of it's personal development, but I also include AI. So I had them do an assignment, and I said, I'm going to award somebody with an hour consulting with me on AI. And this is what this participant of mine came in and said. She was overwhelmed by the different opportunities. She had not considered about how she can take this nascent idea that she'd been thinking about, but she kept thinking, well, how can this be a business? I don't know how to make that a business. We don't know what we don't know. And this is such an easy way to expand our reach and thinking, especially for a team of one.
So there was in the last couple of days, Amazon had a blackout or had some challenges. with their services, and it affected a number of different companies. That's always the argument, right? When those things happen, that's when people say, "See, this is the problem here. All this technology, these are going to cause technology is always going to break down. You're always going to have some sort of challenge." What do you say to people who have those concerns or use that as an excuse to say, "This is why I don't really want to go all in"?
Well, I can understand the concern. And you ever have a staff member call out sick? That's exactly the same thing. AI is less sick than that staff member is, right? Those things can happen. I absolutely agree. And again, with that happens with your staff, with someone whose child is sick, they're sick, they for whatever reason they didn't show up to work. That absolutely can happen, and it's really a small percentage of the time. I mean, even if you look like at a tool like ChatGPT, the amount of downtime they have is very small. It really is. Not despite this AWS issue that impacted a lot of technology. If I could make one other comment, because something that you said
Absolutely.
before, Sonia, I think is important to mention too, when you talk about removing our creativity or just our critical thinking skills. And I would argue that those of us that have critical thinking skills, we need to use these. If you don't have critical thinking skills, it's going to be very
Mm,
clear very quickly to people that you're just relying upon AI, because AI hallucinates things. It's
mm,
incumbent upon us to read what AI came back to us and say, does this make sense? Right? So the critical thinking skills are absolutely still necessary. Again, this is just a way to speed up and get more things done.
And we'll be right back.
I'd like to get a sense of how you incorporate your AI coaching and training with your corporate wellness development, and how that seemed like a very new space. I mean, AI is obviously a new tool, but how you've been able to incorporate it in your business to be an effective business owner.
So I kind of feel like there's two questions there. So let me make sure I
Mm,
understand the question, because one is how I use it as a small business owner, and two, just in terms of running my business. And then another question, which I kind of think that I heard, was how do I, so a lot of things I do are leadership training
right.
or AI training. So let me take the two of them separately. One of the great things that you can do using AI is documenting a process and then delegating it. So a couple of, I don't know, about 6 months ago when my book first came out, I wanted to be on more podcasts. So there's a tool out there, like a matching program to put people together. And I thought, well, if I just put my information in there, everyone's going to want me to be on their podcast. And there were crickets. So I realized that I had to do a little bit more work. I couldn't pass it off to my assistant. I was the person who knew most about my book, about me, what value I could bring to being on a podcast. So I thought about it and I started responding to requests. But what I did was, once I kind of knew how it worked, I created what's called a custom GPT within ChatGPT. And I was able to caution to use the word program, but almost
Right.
program it so that in that less than 30 seconds, I could put information in about the different podcast hosts with whom I wanted to, be a guest, and put that information in, and it had all of my information. I hit a button and then a personalized note would come out. Hi, Sonia, I'd really love to be on your podcast about business first. Here's some information that's relevant about me and also relevant about your podcast.
Right.
Once I created that, I was able to pass that off to my assistant, and she could now respond for me. It was a huge time saver. And it also met my outcome at a much higher level. I could not have written those letters as quickly. I couldn't have
Right.
processed the information. So as a small business owner, that is one of the ways that I am using it. When I am working with my clients, sometimes I'm doing more AI training where I can come in and help teams to get up to speed. And because of my background, I can also help with the change management piece of it, which is getting people to overcome their fears about it. So that's
Mhm.
one of the things I think that makes me a little bit unique, kind of coming from a coaching background and also Like I've been working in AI for the last 2 years. So that's it's kind of separate. When I'm doing speaking and even in my book, I'm adding AI prompts. Even in my group I mentioned, the Unstoppable Circle, it is largely a personal development program for women. And I'm constantly adding little AI tips and tools because I think it's so important. It's
Right.
absolutely necessary. So I'm looking for ways that I can integrate it.
So if you could explain that for the audience as well. So you are literally, as you're working, as you're developing your programming, as you're developing your clientele, you are still feeding AI different information, prompting information so that it can help you build as you build.
Absolutely. Let me give you an example. So one of the programs I lead, I have a mastermind that I've been leading for a couple of years now. And there's one of the very popular AI tools is what's called a note taker. And there are a lot of different branded ones out there. My note taker follows me into all of my meetings. And my clients know it's coming in. This helps me to take notes. Everyone is comfortable with it. And so that helps me to take the notes. At the end of the meeting, I'm going to throw that into ChatGPT. I keep on saying ChatGPT. I do happen
Yeah.
to use that one a lot. I use others, but that's the one I use probably most frequently. I will throw that in there and say, if you were one of my clients, Sonia made a point about XYZ, pull out some of the relevant points for me. So I can pull out the little pieces that I'm going to need. By time I have recorded all of the mastermind calls from a period of time, it learns more about me. It learns more about my clients. These are not really confidential things. I'm sure one of the things that people are concerned about is confidentiality.
Right.
And you mentioned before it can do analysis, and it can do analysis. I wouldn't take my bank statements and throw
Right.
them in there, right? But there are other things. I have contracts I've had it review, and it's
Right.
not taking the place of an attorney. But again, as a small business owner, I want to mitigate the number of hours I might need to pay someone review. So I might want to throw that contract in there and say, what are the things that are jumping out immediately that I probably ought to be aware of? And then that can better inform me when I speak to my attorney to say, hey, what about this point? What about this point? What do you think? So I am a more educated consumer when I go to my attorney.
It's funny that you mentioned that because we did have a previous guest who used ChatGPT as his attorney because it was a major lawsuit,
Hmm.
and he didn't have the funds to have the type of attorney that he would have needed to sue. He was suing a county, the state.
Mhm.
There were several folks that were targeted in the lawsuit, and by the time we had done the interview, he had everyone was served
Wow.
through the process that he had had with Chat GPT. I also know people who do medical analysis will get their medical records and put that into a program and get that reviewed. What would be a starting for someone again who is just starting out? What would you recommend um, for them to in terms of tools? So chat, I think most people know, even if they haven't tried it, I think most people know that it exists. Um, do you have like a top 3 or a top 4 list
Hmm.
of tools that you would recommend that people use?
Okay. Yes. The As I've mentioned, ChatGPT. I do love chat. I will give you the downside of chat, because I've heard this said before. ChatGPT is very American, and what it means is it will agree with you. It'll say, "Sonia, that's a great idea," right? Even if it's a lousy idea. I use another tool which is a better writer, and a better it's more French. It's Claude AI. It's by Anthropic. And Claude AI is very French and it'll say, Sonia, that's a bad idea. Why would you do that? Right? It's a bit more critical, gives you a little bit more pushback. And I
Right.
often use the two of them to bounce ideas back and forth. Another tool that I often use and I love is Gamma app. And Gamma app is an app that will allow you to create a PowerPoint presentation in a matter of minutes. So if you have a last minute presentation you're walking into, or that slides would help you make your case, I would start in ChatGPT. I'd pull together my thoughts. I would say, prepare that now for Gamma app. I would take that, put it in Gamma app, hit the button. There's my PowerPoint presentation. And they have a free version of it and a paid version, and as many of them do. Let's see, what else do I use regularly? There's also other competitors to that. Beautiful AI are the two that I
Right.
most use, but there are other power presentation applications that are out there.
Yeah.
AI is incorporated in so many things that we're
In
using.
so many things right now. Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you
In
even
fact,
look,
some people might be using it and not, or benefiting from it and not even realizing that they are benefiting from it.
yeah, I am pretty confident that they are, because your phone, if you're talking to Siri, if you have Alexa in your house,
Yeah.
all of those are AI tools. The other thing I
Yeah.
would say, again, thinking of small business owners, if they're doing any type of creative work for themselves, a tool like Canva. Canva has a
Right.
lot of AI capability in there. So
Yeah.
those are the ones. Oh, and I'm sorry, there is one more that I use very frequently. It's called Perplexity AI. And Perplexity AI is great if you really want to look for source information. Because if you sometimes are working with ChatGPT, it's like, oh, studies tell you that XYZ. But if you ask it for the study, oh, well, that was from different studies, it kind
Right.
of comes back to that. So when I was
Yeah.
writing my book, I actually got to a point where I wanted to put more studies to support some of the things I was saying. And
Mhm.
Perplexity AI is the place that I went to help me pull that data together.
Going to switch gears a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your background. You've worked in a number of different places. You worked for the federal government. You've worked with corporate businesses. Obviously, you worked with Tony Robbins. So you've had a vast amount of experience. Tell us how that has served you today in all of the work, the new work that you're doing, and the current work that you're doing.
Yeah, I followed the path my parents wanted me, and I got that good job out of college, right?
Yeah.
And then I got my master's, and again, got that great job, and I loved it. I was very happy working at IBM for 20 years, and that was great. I also had the good fortune to work for some very small businesses, in a number of different capacities, everything from a cannabis extraction firm out in Oregon to working with HVAC companies locally to help them with their marketing. And I think what that does, and then I guess because, combine the personal development work I've done with Tony Robbins. And so I think what it allows me to do is, one, I really can connect with many people on a lot of topics. I can find that connection point very easily. And
Mhm.
maybe I don't have the exact experience, but I have a lot of things to draw upon. And so I find that I can bring some of those skills that I've learned in large corporations to smaller companies. My experience with smaller companies where I've had to wear a lot more hats has forced me to be much more nimble. And I can bring that also to bear wherever I'm working. And then also, I've sold to the federal government. The federal government has been a client of mine personally, and understanding the challenges, let's say, of working with the federal government and the contracting process and all of the
Right.
checks and balances, I also have experience with. So I'm not easily, what's the word I want to use? I'm not easily put off, I'll just say, or rattled when I see those things come my way.
Based on all of that, all of you've experienced, what advice would you give to small businesses, particularly in this environment of uncertainty where no one is sure of what's happening, whether it's in the markets, whether it's in jobs, whether it's business? People are very unsure about what is happening. But being nimble, having a vast range of experience, what advice would you offer?
Honestly, I would say get my book. And I know it sounds like a shameless plug for my book. The thing that the book teaches you is how to manage your emotional state, because change and, you know, the kind of the craziness that we wake up every day reading the news doesn't look like it's going away anytime soon. And quite frankly, there's always that
Right.
type of a change.
Yeah.
When we can manage
Right.
our emotional state and reduce that stress, and dare I say, demolish the stress, we access our critical thinking skills. much more effectively than we can if we're with our shoulders bunched up, if we can't breathe because we're so stressed about what's coming next. Those things are going to happen. It's incumbent upon us to manage that internally so that we can bring our best selves. So if there was anything I would say, it's the time to, whether it's the book, I'm kind of joking, get the book, I love it. If not, go someplace else and figure out how to manage that state. Because there's so much going on, especially when you're running a small business and you're wearing all the hats. And you got to rely upon yourself.
Where would you see opportunity?
I would say it's a great question to ask ChatGPT. And what I mean by that is, or another AI. And what I mean by that is, whatever your business area is, having that kind of a dialogue with a tool like ChatGPT will help you to see those things that you're not seeing, right? And I think it's important. And one of the things that I always do is I talk to my AI. So not just the typing. There's two different talk modes specifically in ChatGPT. One which is more of a dictation mode. So you just want to capture your thoughts, and essentially just capture the thoughts. There's another one, which is a dialogue. And I can say, hey, I have this idea. I'm thinking about this. I want to reach more of these type of clients. And it will come back and have a conversation with you. Again, which is so ideal when we're people who are running small businesses. And we may or may not have the expertise on our staff who can have that dialogue with us. And so in terms of where there's so much opportunity. Whenever there is strife, there is opportunity. It's just a question of managing your emotional state, quieting yourself, quieting nerves, and connecting with the tools and resources, whether they are people or whether they are something like one of the AI tools available to you.
What are the next opportunities that Allyson Ward is looking for?
Well, let's see. The thing that I'm really focused on right now is my speaking, actually. I want to find a way to impact the lives of more people. And, associations, everybody's having, speakers come in. Stress is a big topic. I have a new talk out there called Excellence Without Exhaustion, the Gracefully Bold Approach, which is based on my book. And so that's really what I'm gearing up for, starting to take on more speaking opportunities for 2026. And then also I have a passion for working with women, especially, because I too am over 50. So I know there's a lot of things that we're confronted with. And so working with women to show them that there's so many more possibilities and supporting them in that journey. So those are the two things and of course I work with my clients in AI and I'm available to people looking for assistance with that. But those are the things I'm most focused on, Sonia.
Yes. So please let us know how we can get in touch with you, how we can follow you. And for anybody who's interested in either coaching or being a part of the work that you do, how they can reach you.
The best way really to get a hold of me is through my LinkedIn right now. My website is there. It's AllysonWard.com, AllysonWard.com. Although it is going through a restructuring right now. That's one way. LinkedIn is really a great way. And I'm also always posting tips that people can use there. So I'm pretty active there. That's a really great way to get a hold of me. And then failing that and you need something immediately, just send a note to team@thecapstonegroup.us, CAPSTONE group.us, and somebody will forward it to me and I'll be in touch.
Okay. And again, Allyson is ALLYSONWARD. Ward is her last name. Thank you so much for being here and sharing all of this wonderful information. And we'll be staying in touch and we'll be following you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to serve your audience.
And thank you all for listening. We'll be back again next week with another great guest. Take care.
The Business First podcast is hosted and produced by Sonia Alleyne. Executive producer Ken Johnson. Find the Business First podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Odyssey, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, TuneIn, or wherever you get your podcast. On social media on IG at business_first_podcast. Follow the Mean Ole Lion Media podcast network on IG at Mean Ole Lion Media. Get the Mean Ole Lion Media app in the App Store or Google Play. The Business First podcast is a Mean Ole Lion Media production.